Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get started. It's 7:41. And the date today is January 10th, 2023. First item on the, oh yes, the Finance Committee meeting. Okay, I think we are ready then. Let's start with agenda item 2.1, review and discussion of cash account report. Ms. Arbion?
Yes, sir. So we're going to ask Ms. Mata to come up, and she's going to walk us through 2.1, the cash account report. And we have several reports for you here tonight.
Good evening, Board President Moreno, Board of Trustees, and Ms. Cedrion. The first report that we're going to go through is the cash account report. So, hold on. Okay. So just a real quick synopsis is, at the end of December 2022, the cash account balance for First Community Bank was $4,187,365.87. For the investment accounts, which consist of First Republic, Texas Class, and Ameritrade, the balance was $70,747,260.86, for a total of cash and investment balance at the end of December of $74,934,626.73. Any questions?
Any questions or concerns from the board members? Okay, let's go to item 2. It's an agenda item, 2.1. The next item, 2.2, review and discussion of comparison of revenue and expenditures to budget.
Okay. The next report is the comparison. The first slide that we have here is the revenues. As you can tell, for the general operating funds, which consist of our food service, our athletics, band, choir, and local maintenance, which is our general fund, we realized a total of $57,488,677.26 at the end of December. For our debt service, which is where we pay our bonds from, we've collected $6,087,171.51. And the capital projects, which is a $40 million bond projects with interest, we've earned $41,109,781.38. These are revenues for these accounts. If you go to the next slide, for the expenditures for the general fund, if you remember on the prior slide, it was 58 million approximately, 57.4 million. Expenditures at the end of December is 40,731,677.12. So we were quite high on our revenues, but again, we don't get revenues in February and August, just as a reminder. Our bond payments, this is a $1,764,272.87 that we paid. Like I mentioned, in August, we paid our interest. February, which is next coming month, we are going to pay interest and our bond principal. So you'll see that figure change at that point for our report in March. For the capital projects expensed, we've expensed $21,166,284.92 from our bond projects. Any questions on that report?
Questions? Agenda item. Next item is 2.3, review and discussion of tax collection report.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so for our tax collection report for the end of December 2022, which consists of our fiscal year July through December, the taxes collected to date for current is current and delinquent, is $12,618,130.17. Compared to last year, if you look at the percentage, to date is 68.82%. Last year at the same time of December, it was 70.47%. So slightly low, like about 1.5%, 1.6, give or take. So we're more or less around the ballpark. But if you notice, another thing that I wanted to mention is that the property value, if you notice, is 16 million last year versus this year went up to 17 million. So that's another reason why the percentage is different. So Any questions?
Questions, board members? No? Okay. Agenda item 2.3. Let's move on to 2.4, review and discussion of check disbursement.
Hold on, I think I went. Hold on. It's not letting. It's not there. Okay, right, sorry. Sorry. Okay, so for the check register, in your packet, you received the whole listing that we actually issue out. I'm just gonna do the summary. For the general fund AP checks, we issued $1,617,085.84. For student activity checks, we issued $54,212.10. For the construction projects, we issued $929,774.25. For the scholarship checks, we issued $3,750. Payroll checks, and this is for employee payments that actually get paid to the employees, $7,899,032.97. The payroll liability checks, which is for our vendors, our IRS, TRS, and voluntary insurances, is $1,673,005.65. For a total of all checks for the month of December is $12,176,860.81.
Questions? Agenda item 2.4. Moving on to 2.5, review and discussion of quarterly investment report.
On this one, we are required to go over, you do get this quarterly report, it's, by law, we have to report our interest that we earn, whether it be our community bank loan, our community bank account that we have, or the investment report that you see, that you get every month. So for the quarter, which consists of October 1st, 2022 to the end of December 31st, 2022, the total interest that we earned on all our accounts, which is, again, First Community Bank and our three investment companies that we have, is $470,873.23. Any questions on that?
Questions? Agenda item. Going out to 2.6, review and discussion of quarterly federal funds comparison report.
This is just information that we provide to the board on a quarterly basis. This is just an overview of all the grants that the district has. The top portion is the 22-23 grants that are only for one fiscal year. Some of these do carry over, some do not. And then you can see the multi-year grants, which, it gives you the year range on the bottom portion. For the 22-23 grant year, the total grants that we have is $12,229,279. Also, you can see who who oversees the grant. The year-to-date expenditures for the total grant is $3,314,917.34. As you can tell, a lot of funds are still available to be spent. And some of these grants end at the end of September 23, which will be in the next fiscal year. The multi-year grants, we have $47,143,077, with the ESSER 3 being, of course, the largest one that we have. And that one, we've expensed $30,383,196.28, leaving a balance of $16,759,880.72. So overall for grants for the current year, we have $59,372,356 awarded, and we've expensed $33,698,113.62, with the balance of $25,201,560.38 available to spend from now till the end of each period as designated by TA.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On the ESSER funds, it says here, it ends at 2020, that 15 million. What are we gonna do with those 15 million, Mr. Vion, for the ESSER funds?
We have that 2-year plan that we presented to you all.
Okay,
So the last year on the third year, I think it's about 6 million that we'll keep for the third year.
okay,
But what I did want to emphasize was, with our federal funds, it's also very tied to payroll. So a lot of this funding goes towards payroll, and that's why it will be expended at different times of the year.
I don't know if you can add this to the federal fund report on the next one. I really appreciate in the previous reports where it has the percentage that we've used, just so that there's a lot of numbers and that column is very helpful for me. And then on the multi-year grants, so all of these, the balances need to be used by the end year on the grant, not by the end of this fiscal year.
No, by the end of the year grant. So most of them is 2024, which will be next fiscal year.
Are there any that are, I don't know how to word this. So, we have $15 million left in ESSER 3, and this is just an example. I know it doesn't apply to ESSER, but is there any guidelines on any of these that say, like, we have to use $8 million by the end of 2020, the fiscal year of
No.
2023? No, these are just
On
blanket.
your
Yeah.
title programs,
But those
It's
are the grant years.
Yeah,
yes, the title programs are different, and
Oh, yes.
you can carry over 25%.
So the, like, Title I ESF, that one is the one that you can only,
Yes.
you can only carry over 25% off.
So, where are you looking? Let me see.
Title I,
Which one?
the effective schools.
Amy Rodriguez, yeah.
That was a multi-year, that's a multi-year grant.
That's what I'm asking, like, are any of
Yeah.
these multi-year grants like that, where you can only carry over 25%, and if you don't spend that?
It's within the year span. Sorry.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir, I got a question. Mr. Leon, here on the grant award for the APR homeless, I think it's important to really highlight that, because I don't think, sometimes I think we take it for granted that there's a lot of struggling kids out there, and there are homeless kids. And I think it's something to let everyone know that, if there's anything that we continue doing as a district to continue to help the kids that come here that need additional services, that we're doing everything we can to help them out. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
2.6 is it's an agenda item. Let's moving on to 2.7, review and discussion of a 25K purchase request for Security International for Silent Panic Alert Technology Grant.
This was actually briefly talked about in the previous section with Mr. Flores. They did apply for a grant. I know that Chief Sosa, Mr. Flores, and Mr. Perez worked on it together. We were awarded the grant, and this is, they selected Security International as a vendor. They will receive, and the grant, like Mr. Flores stated, was only for silent panic alert buttons. That way the police can be notified. And also the administrator will get a fob that they will get in case there is an emergency and they have to contact the police. So this is, a grant was specific for that, and we did get it, and it's just a line item to award Security International. It is our current carrier, and they would not charge us additional fees for integrating it into our system or anything else and monitor it for us. Any questions?
Questions? 2.7 is an agenda item. Moving on to 2.8, review and discussion to renew property casualty windstorm insurance coverage for one additional year under the interlocal agreement with TASB.
Okay, I do have Mr. Castles here with me, and Mr. Peña, which is our TASB representative, is also here with us.
Good evening, President Moreno, members of the board, Mr. Cervellon. We're asking the board for approval for our local TASB property casualty insurance. This insurance includes our property, automobile liability, automobile physical damage, school liability, including professional, legal, general employee benefits and liability, privacy and information security, violent acts. We've had this policy with TASB for, I think, the last 10-some years. I have Mr. Adrian Peña from TASB here to give us a couple of, if you all have any specific questions.
Board President Moreno, Superintendent Cervellon, members of the board. I think I've met all of y'all before. My name is Adrian Peña with the TASB Risk Management Fund. Just one thing to clarify is the property coverage. This is sans the windstorm coverage. This is for all other perils, not windstorm coverage. I think Mr. Carlisle's here to address that. One thing to note is that the district underwent a physical appraisal in February of 2022. So your total insured value for every single building content at the district is now at $513,949,000. So that is up about $63 million from the previous year. Yeah. And the trick is, don't have claims. No. The insurance market, as Mr. Carlisle will probably reiterate to you guys, is probably the toughest it's been in at least 20-plus years that I've been in it. Coupled with inflation, coupled with a shortage of materials and goods and all that, you will probably continue to see your pricing go up, especially in light of your cyber situation, and it's unfortunate. The violent acts coverage that we do provide to the district is at no cost to y'all. That is in case of a Uvalde situation. Interestingly, even though we provide you with $250,000 within our coverage document, we actually will also go up to $1 million for demolition of building, of a wing, etc., and that is at no cost to San Benito CISD. Do y'all have any questions for me at this time?
I actually have
Questions?
a question for Mr. Cavazos. How long have we had this insurance before? We're renewing it?
We've had this insurance, man, ever since.
For a long time, right?
For a
Yeah.
long time, ever
Yes.
since I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had it for a while.
I have a question also. And has it changed every year? Has it changed, the premium, has it changed every single year?
Oh, yeah.
The premiums went up like 103.
It went up $103,000.
$600 and something, but part of that was because of our appraisal. TASB did an appraisal of all our buildings. So as you know now, appraisals have skyrocketed.
The material
So that's
has
part of
gone.
the, that's part of
Yes.
the reason why.
Yeah, the
Remember when
material's
she
high.
said something about your values went up? It's the same thing for school districts as well. Last year, y'all were at 635,654 for premium coverage. Now you're at 738, roughly $103,000, but that was mainly due to your appraisal.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions? Agenda item? Two point nine, review and discussion of option to extend proposals on general supply service district-wide RFP 1221 GMS for an additional.
Yes, we're seeking approval for the general merchandise and services. This is gonna be the last one for this year. I know I've already brought like 2 or 3 before the board, but now we are sure that all the approved vendors are good for another year. So this is the last one for this year.
For additional 1 year?
Huh?
1 year?
1 year, yes, sir.
Questions? 2.9, agenda item. Moving on to 2.10, review and discussion of option to extend proposals on professional consultant service district-wide RFP 1221.
Yes, we're requesting approval for the professional consultants. Again, this is the same like the general merchandise. It's just an approved list on an as-needed basis, and it's good for 1 more year. Yep.
Questions? Agenda item. 2.11, review and discussion of proposals for property and contents coverage windstorm insurance RFP 1222 PCWI.
Yes, the district solicited proposals for windstorm insurance. This is separate from what we have from TASB. This is just named storms only. Hurricanes, name and number storms. I have Mr. Chase Carlisle here. He submitted a proposal. We got 3 options. We went into a negotiation process with him because the rates have really skyrocketed, as Mr. Carlisle will kind of explain.
What company, sir?
With Carlisle Insurance. Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you for having me this evening. I did bring a little PowerPoint here because we would like to review some options with the board this evening. As Eddie explained, the rates are significantly up from what we had last year. That's kind of a common occurrence for what we've seen the last 4 or 5 years. If we look at the property insurance market, specifically the catastrophic property insurance market, which is where we are located here along the Texas coast, if we looked at a 40-year picture of it, what you're going to see is a very cyclical line. We've got peaks and valleys in that line, and every peak in the rates is driven by the natural disasters. So up and from 2005, which I believe was Hurricane Katrina, which we're all familiar with, up until 2017, we were in what we considered a soft property market, meaning rates were coming down, deductibles were coming down. It was a very good environment for the consumer to purchase insurance. 2017 happened. We had Hurricane Harvey up by Corpus, where I live. We had Irma and Maria as well, and those 3 storms started the transition of the line of rates starting to increase. Since then, we have not seen the natural disasters stop. We've gone through a pandemic. We've had numerous hurricanes. We've had social injustice issues. Mr. Pena addressed on it. We're in a supply and demand issue now. We've had the Texas freeze last year, I guess that was, about to the date. It just has not slowed down, and that is consistent with a 40-year picture of what happens around the world. The question is, when do those natural disasters stop, and when do the line and the rates start coming down? So part of the problem we're having over the last 4 or 5 years, as these disasters occur, insurance companies are the type of people that they like to be in when we're not having claims because they make money, and then they jump out whenever everything gets bad because they're losing money, right? So again, when we think about the basic principles of economics, we talk about supply and demand. What we're seeing over the last 4 or 5 years is we had carriers pulling out, meaning we have less amount of capacity. And when we talk about capacity, it's the amount of insurance that's available in the market to the consumer. So if we have less insurance, but the same, if not more demand, we've got a supply and demand issue, the pricing goes up. Pretty simple concept, hopefully to everybody here. But so that's what's driving the rate increases right now, and that's what's been driving it for the last 3 to 4 years. 2023 is actually probably the worst year that we've seen. Mr. Pena addressed that earlier as well. I've been in the industry now for 16 years, and by far this is the hardest market we've seen to put stuff together. To the point that schools such as y'all's size and the larger schools, the market is not even able to put an entire placement together to insure all the buildings. When we talk about the Brownsvilles, the Corpus Christi ISDs, these types of accounts that have billions of dollars of values in buildings, there's just not enough capacity insurance out there to even put a proposal on the table to insure all those types of assets. So, we insure, we're fortunate enough to insure about 60 districts throughout South Texas. We understand that there's not additional dollars in the budget to buy insurance. So again, what I'm here this evening to do is provide some different options for the board to consider that are different than what we purchased last year to try to save some money. You mind if we change the slide real quick? Okay, so these are the options that have been provided. I do have, if you look at the top line item here, you're going to see the columns that say 10 million, 25 million, 50 million, 75 million, and 100 million. The RFP did request for a total asset values of 477 million worth of building and contents values. So that's the total exposure. But when we look at these line items at the top, the 10 to the 100 million, those are what we call loss limits. So the district last year purchased a $100 million loss limit, meaning in the event of a hurricane to the district, the maximum amount the policy would pay out would be $100 million. Very standard. Again, this is something that we've had to go to based on the market. 7, 8 years ago, we were buying full limits on the $400 million of values, but as we see these rate increases, we have to pull back on what we buy. The larger districts such as Edinburgh, Brownsville, again Corpus, McAllen, Far St. Juan, these larger districts that have been buying billions of dollars in insurance for numerous years, they were not buying full limits on their property either. So it's a very common concept. It's standard in the industry, and what we usually look at is we usually buy between 25 and 35% of what the exposure is. So at 100 million, based on 477 million, we're at roughly 21% of what our total exposure is. So we're even a little bit light at the 100 million, but again, our expiring premium for 100 million was 896,000. If we were to buy that again this year, it's $1.5 million, almost $1.6 million. So I'm not sure that's a feasible option for the district to consider this year. Again, the board can see the different options as we go down. I don't know that I could recommend buying a $10 million limit. Again, when we became your broker 7-8 years ago, the district was only buying 10 million for whatever reason. Of course, the district was probably about half the size in building assets at that time on the property valuation. So again, it was a little bit light back then, but even at today, if we were about at 10 million, we're only insuring 2% of our total exposure. Probably not something that I would be able to recommend to the board and administration. Do you mind changing? Yes, sir. So the next 2 pages here are what we call a catastrophic risk summary. These are what we also refer to as modeling reports, and these are not proprietary software, but they're industry-wide software that every insurance company uses to model different events that would occur based on the information that's provided. So when we use these risk summaries, all y'all's building information is plugged into a software system, and it models what different catastrophic events would sustain damage to the district. There's 2 of them here. The first one that we're looking at right here, I'm trying to see which is the, I believe that's the RMS one. The next one is the ARR. There's 2 different ones. What we'll see is with the yellow highlighted areas is what we consider the 250-year storm. There's a 0.4% chance of the district sustaining one of those, but that's kind of the industry standard of what the insurer carriers look at for the 250-year storm to figure out how they need to price the account. This specific one at the 250-year storm does say that, and I like to look at the bottom box because that shows the loss amplification, which means kind of like this is what we think, but it might be worse than that. So that's usually the one that we look at. Does show that a ground-up loss to the district in one of those events would be close to a $25 million loss before your deductible. So again, if we're looking at the 250-year storm, which is kind of the trend that we need to look at, the model here shows that we would have close to a $25 million loss in that type of event. A 10,000-year storm, which is the top one, shows a $240 million loss. If we have a 10,000-year storm, we're not gonna have to worry about insurance because everything's gonna be gone. So again, I would focus on the 250 or the 500-year storm options. If we'll flip one more slide, please. This is the ARR report that I referenced as well. They do have some discrepancy between the 2 because again, on the previous one, if we looked at the 250-year storm, we're looking at 25 million. This one here shows, sorry, I'm reading this backwards probably. I said that backwards. The previous one showed a $48 million loss on the 250-year storm. This one shows the $24 million loss, or $25 million if you want to call it that. So there is a discrepancy between the 2 modeling reports. We generally don't see that much discrepancy, but there is. In a situation like this, I would say maybe we consider somewhere in the middle. If we go back 2 more slides, back to the options, so we can look at those options real quick. Again, we do have, like I said, the $10 million option, something we probably don't want to consider. The $25 million to the $50 million is somewhere that I think the district needs to be focusing on purchasing something in that area. I also have a $35 million option that I did not include in there, but just for reference, that option would be, we'll just call it a $1.25 million. So kind of right in between the $25 and $50 million option. And I can have that updated and send that to administration to provide to the superintendent to provide you all as well if you'd like to consider that option as well. Any questions about everything I just spoke on?
It's only named storms.
Yes, sir.
Names, you don't cover depressions or,
No, it's name and numbered. Actually, I take that back. It is named storm only, so it's tropical storms
tropical
and
storms.
hurricanes.
And hurricanes.
Anything with a name, yes, sir.
Anything with
Tropical cyclone activity. So nowadays, they name every storm.
Yeah,
Winter
yeah.
Storm Uri and all that, so they've had to specify this is tropical cyclone activity only. So that we're not covering
It's gone up,
freezes.
gone up,
Yes, sir.
big time.
Big time.
So at this point, Mr. Cavazos, do we have a recommendation as to what we're going to look at?
So we asked Mr. Carlisle for several options. We kind of figured that the first three he submitted were very super high. So we want the board to kind of consider, and I have Ms. Mata here to see what we can afford.
In my opinion, like Mr. Carlisle stated, I would venture to look at anywhere between the least 25 million to 50, but if you ask me, the 35 million would be the more feasible one, because we'd be in the middle ballpark, so. But that would be like for approval, and y'all can discuss it and look at the options. Once Mr. Carlisle sends us the updated information, we can send it to everybody, so y'all can look it over, but for next week's board meeting.
How many times have we used that insurance?
0. That I know of, 0.
I don't, I mean, in the 7 or 8 years I've been here, we have never had a claim.
You never know.
Yeah,
And we now have a roofing situation. We now have a roofing situation, even just with the heavy rain. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Carlisle, can you provide the $35 million one?
Yes, sir.
For us
Yeah,
to
we'll-
review?
We'll provide that to staff, so they can present that to you.
Had a cheap
At the $10 million rate.
That sounds
That's
good.
what-
Like I was gonna say, the last storm we had that was here locally was Hain, I guess, a couple years ago, a couple years this summer, and the district didn't sustain any damage that I'm aware of from that. So,
So ma'am, where would this funding come from? I mean, ma'am,
It would be part of our budget from current year, because this is effective February, and then the rest would be from next year's funding when we're building the budget. We have to ensure that that's built into our account codes with, of course, a projection of, again, the renewal is in February, so you budget whatever is rest from like July through January, and then you anticipate an increase for February through June of next year. And as you all, and we are going to start the budget process hopefully next month, and you will see that I've been stressing, I'm looking at the numbers for the ADA, I'm looking at the functions that were moved over from Fund 199 to ESSER, which are 4 major departments that I need to move back into 199. So all these things I'm already looking at and seeing if we are going to be able to manage without going into fund balance. But at the end of the day, that's something we are going to have to discuss as a board, and Mrs. Servio and myself and everybody else in the cabinet, and be very transparent as far as this is what the revenues show. My staff and I have already started working on the summary of finance template that was actually out since December. I sent it to them before we left on vacation. They had a meeting today with our PIMS director to start looking at numbers. So all that is incorporated, and this will be incorporated into our budget.
okay, I got one quick question for Mr. Carlisle. If it's gonna be too lengthy, then we can talk about it some other time. As far as our 3 new buildings, as I'm more sure you're aware, since they're newly constructed, aren't they already insured, sir? Or their coverage don't cover,
Not
Windstorm.
windstorm.
they on that SOV or no? On the new buildings? Are they on the statement of values that we just quoted or no? Are they on the statement of values that was in the RFP? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, but what's already, I mean, I guess they're prematurely built, those companies, okay, are insured, okay. Yeah. I got you, okay, sir,
And
thank you.
I forgot to mention that, Mr. Pena mentioned it, but y'all's values did go up too. So these premiums, yes, we had a significant rate increase, but we also had, on our side, on the RFP, I think we had it close to 80, I think you said 90 million total.
And this is the
But that
trend
did-
for all of the school districts, right? Not
Oh,
just
yeah.
us? Okay.
Yeah, you are just kind of the first one of the year, in our book of business. But yeah, we have, probably 33-1 renewals on March 1st renewals, all along the coast, and yeah, it's gonna be bad.
We can't just like pick up all the buildings in our district and move them to.
We could try,
Can you be kind to us, Mr. Carlisle?
yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Any other questions? Okay, 2.11 is an agenda item. Moving on to 2.12, review and discussion of proposals on meals and catering services district-wide. RFP 1221 MCSD.
Yes, we're requesting approval for meals and catering on that list. Again, this is a 1-year approval for, on an as-needed basis. And all vendors should be approved after this one.
Is this
For
all
one
the
year.
list you got? This is all?
Yeah,
This isn't all encompassing though, it's just for this renewal period.
yeah.
You're
this-
adding,
but-
you're
but I-
adding.
But I
Okay,
mean all the
okay, okay. I see,
comprehensive
I
ones.
see.
All the general merchandise, all the professional, everybody's good for another year.
Questions? Agenda item 2.12.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee concerns, 3.1? No? Closing of the meeting, adjourn. It's 8:16. Thank you.